Recording date, Galactic Standard Year 12,024. Subject, Final Report on the Human Observation Project from Professor NX7, Lead Xenoanthropologist. Classification, deeply embarrassing. Let me start by saying this isn't the report I expected to file when I took over the Human Observation Project 300 years ago. To be honest, it's not the report anyone expected to file since we first contacted Earth 10,000 years ago. But here we are, and someone has to document how the entire Galactic Scientific Council got played like a bunch of first-year quantum physics students. I suppose I should begin at the beginning, though technically the beginning was the end, and the end was, well, you'll see. 10,000 years ago, our first contact team discovered Earth. Standard procedure, really. We detected their primitive radio signals, traced them back, and found a developing civilization just starting to experiment with basic space travel. Nothing special. We'd done this dance hundreds of times before with other species, but the humans were different. Where most species react to first contact with either terror or aggression, humans just seemed amused. They welcomed our researchers with open arms, and what we now know was barely concealed laughter. At the time, we attributed their remarkable calm to their extensive science fiction media, preparing them for alien contact. We were so naive. I still remember my first field assignment. Fresh out of the academy, I was tasked with observing a human specimen we categorized as Dave from Nebraska. Dave was, by all our measurements, the most perfectly average human we could find. He lived in a modest dwelling, worked a standard job at something called an insurance company, and spent his free time engaging in typical human recreational activities, like watching the game and having a cold one. Dave was almost too perfect a specimen. In retrospect, that should have been our first clue. "Oh yeah, sure, you can study me," he said when we approached him, barely glancing up from his smartphone device. "Just doing normal human stuff here. Nothing special. Want to watch me file my taxes? That's a pretty human thing to do, right?" We did in fact watch him file his taxes for 3 years. We wrote 700 papers analyzing human tax preparation rituals. The Galactic Scientific Council gave out 12 grants for further tax-related research. Throughout it all, Dave maintained what we classified as the standard human expression of mild discomfort, which we now know is actually their trying not to laugh face. But I'm getting ahead of myself, and the Council was thrilled with how cooperative humans were with our research. They never complained about our observation posts. They never questioned our presence at their important events. They even started helpfully labeling things for us. "Oh, this is an important human cultural artifact," they'd say, holding up literally anything. We had an entire museum wing dedicated to these cultural artifacts before we realized half of them were something called dashboard hula dancers. In those early days, we congratulated ourselves on finding such a perfectly observable species. Humans seemed to go about their daily routines completely unfazed by our presence. They carried on with their lives, had their little wars, invented their cute little technologies, and all the while they kept providing us with endless data for our research. The Galactic Scientific Council's annual reports were glowing. "The Human Observation Project continues to be our most successful long-term study," they wrote. "Their willingness to be observed in their natural habitat is unprecedented. The humans' complete lack of interference with our research methods makes them the perfect subjects for understanding developing civilizations." Perfect subjects indeed. Too perfect, as it turns out. But that's getting into the territory of my colleague Kip T's report. And believe me, that's where this story really starts to get interesting. Field note: I have officially requested that the Academy strike the term gullible from all references to non-human species in our Xeno dictionaries. The humans are still laughing about that one. Looking back, we really should have noticed something was off when humans started anticipating our research interests before we announced them. "Oh, you're studying human mating rituals," Dave from Nebraska would say, completely unprompted. "Well, wouldn't you know it, there's a speed dating event downtown tonight." Total coincidence. Very typical human courtship behavior. You should definitely document it. And we did. Oh, how we documented it. Thousands of hours of observations, all meticulously catalogued. It wasn't until much later that we discovered speed dating was about as representative of human mating habits as their professional wrestling was of actual combat techniques. But it was our new intern Kip T who first started noticing the truly suspicious patterns. Fresh out of the academy and still naive enough to question authority, Kip T had been assigned to digitize our historical observation records when they noticed something odd. "Professor NX7?" They burst into my office one day, waving a data pad frantically. "I've been analyzing the archived footage of human technological development, and something doesn't add up." "Not now, Kip T," I said, busy writing my 300th paper on human tax preparation rituals. "I'm just about to crack the mysterious correlation between human mood and the number of deductions they claim." "But, Professor, every time we set up an observation post to study a particular aspect of human development, they suddenly start making breakthrough discoveries in exactly that field." I dismissed their concerns, of course. "That's just the observer effect," I said confidently, repeating what I'd been taught. "Our presence naturally accelerates their development." "Then why," Kip T asked, "do I have footage of humans deliberately dropping their phones in front of our observers, then picking them up saying things like, 'Oops, I dropped my totally normal phone with its primitive lithium battery technology that definitely couldn't be improved by, say, quantum crystalline power cells'? I should have listened to Kip T sooner, but like most senior researchers, I was too invested in my own theories. Besides, Dave from Nebraska had just invited me to observe something he called a gender reveal party, which he assured me was a crucial anthropological event and definitely not something humans made up in the last decade to confuse us. The patterns kept mounting, though. Humans would mysteriously gather in large numbers whenever we set up new observation posts, performing what they claimed were totally normal human activities. We wrote entire textbooks about their elaborate coffee ordering rituals before realizing that no human actually needed a triple shot, half-calf, upside-down, extra-hot, no-foam caramel macchiato with exactly 3.5 pumps of sugar-free vanilla. Dave was particularly helpful in this regard. "Oh yeah," he'd say, "we all do this. Very traditional human behavior. Been ordering coffee like this since ancient times. You should see our tea ceremonies. Now those are complicated." But it was the incident with the cat videos that finally made Kip T snap. "Professor!" They stormed into my office again, this time during my critical research into human sock pairing methodologies. "I've been analyzing human internet content, and 73% of all cat videos were uploaded from locations within 100 meters of our observation posts." "Interesting," I mused. "Perhaps cats are attracted to our equipment." "Or perhaps," Kip T suggested, their eye stalks twitching with frustration, "the humans are deliberately creating content they think we'll find fascinating to study." "Don't be ridiculous," I said. "Next you'll be suggesting that humans have been manipulating our research for thousands of years just to mess with us." The look Kip T gave me could have melted titanium. "Actually, Professor," they said slowly, as if explaining something to a particularly dense quantum particle, "that's exactly what I'm suggesting." That's when they showed me the file, a compilation of suspicious incidents so massive it crashed 3 quantum computers just trying to load the index. Thousands of cases where humans had accidentally revealed exactly the information we were seeking. Millions of instances of humans performing increasingly bizarre behaviors only when our observers were present. And Dave from Nebraska featured prominently in far too many of them. That's when I finally did what I should have done years ago. I called an emergency meeting of the Galactic Scientific Council. Though in my defense, how was I supposed to know humans had invented memes specifically to distract us from their actual technological progress? End field note. I've also submitted a formal request to strike the phrase "humans gonna human" from all official documentation. I still don't know what it means, but the humans won't stop saying it while grinning at us. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Scientific Council was called to order in the traditional manner, with Council President Valder smacking their ceremonial graviton gavel so hard it created a small black hole again. "This better be important, Professor NX7. Valder grumbled while maintenance drones cleaned up the singularity. I was in the middle of reviewing fascinating new data about human interpretive dance competitions. Let me guess, Kip T muttered beside me. All the competitions happened within scanner range of our observation posts. How did you know? Valder brightened. They're remarkably considerate about performing near our equipment. I cleared my throat. Honourable Council, we've discovered some concerning patterns in human behaviour that may invalidate the last 10,000 years of research. The council chamber erupted in gasps, followed by the traditional 20 minutes of tentacle wringing and colour shifting that accompanies any disruption to academic consensus. I waited patiently. One learns to be patient after spending 3 centuries studying human tax preparation methods. Explain yourself, Valder demanded once the chromatic chaos subsided. Kip T activated the holographic display and suddenly the chamber was filled with thousands of video clips running simultaneously. Every single one showed humans accidentally demonstrating exactly what our researchers had been looking for. Here, Kip T pointed, is footage from 9,000 years ago, when we were studying human waste management systems. Notice how this group of humans suddenly decides to build an aqueduct while loudly discussing their engineering principles. And here, they continued, is footage from 5,000 years ago when we were researching human agricultural practices. Watch how this farmer drastically over-explains crop rotation to his horse, just as our observation drone passes overhead. That proves nothing, huffed Council Member RX4, their defensive plumage flaring. Humans often explain things to their horses. I wrote my thesis on it. Oh, really? Kip T pulled up another clip. Then perhaps you can explain why, in every single instance, the humans face directly toward our supposedly hidden cameras while doing so. The council chambers grew quiet, broken only by the sound of academic careers crumbling. But, Valder sputtered, their ceremonial headpiece deflating slightly. What about Dave from Nebraska, our most reliable specimen? Surely his behavior validates our research. I took a deep breath. This was the hard part. We've analysed Dave's background and, well, he has 17 PhDs. That's not unusual for a human, protested Council Member Shit9. We've documented many humans pursuing multiple degrees. Yes, I said carefully, but most of them don't earn their PhDs centuries before we officially documented humans discovering advanced physics. We found his quantum mechanics thesis from 3,000 years ago. It was written in crayon on the back of a restaurant menu, apparently just in case we ever went looking for it. The council erupted again. Valder had to create 3 more small black holes before order was restored. If what you're suggesting is true, Valder said slowly, their chromatophores pulsing with distress, then every major xenoanthropological study of the last 10,000 years was carefully scripted by the humans, Kip T finished. Yes, right down to their supposedly primitive space program. Did none of you ever wonder why humans went from their first powered flight to landing on their moon in just 66 years, then apparently stopped major space development just as we started studying them intensively? But why? Someone wailed from the back of the chamber. Why would they do this? That's when we played the recovered footage from something called TikTok, a vast archive of human performance art we'd been studying for decades. The clip showed Dave from Nebraska, clearly much younger but somehow still exactly the same age he'd been for the last 3 centuries, speaking directly to camera. Day 2847 of pretending to be a primitive species for the alien researchers. They still haven't figured it out. Going to show them my stamp collection today and act like it's the height of human archival technology. LOL. The council chambers went so quiet you could hear a quantum particle wave function collapse. Professor NX7, Valder said finally, their voice heavy with the weight of 10,000 years of academic embarrassment. I believe it's time we had a direct conversation with Dave from Nebraska. Field note. I've additionally requested that we strike the term LOL from all xenolinguistic databases. I'm still not entirely sure what it means, but at this point, I'm afraid to ask. The special investigation team was assembled with all the gravity and careful consideration one would expect from the galaxy's finest scientific minds. Which is to say, we panicked and grabbed whoever happened to be in the hallway when Valder stormed out of the council chambers. Our team consisted of myself, Kip T, who at least had actual investigation experience, 3 maintenance drones who were still cleaning up Valder's black holes, and a very confused cafeteria worker who'd just been trying to deliver someone's lunch. First, Kip T announced, taking charge while I had an existential crisis about my 3 centuries of tax research. We need to analyze this internet thing more thoroughly. The humans seemed oddly insistent that we focus on their physical libraries instead. The cafeteria worker raised a tentacle. Shouldn't I get back to the kitchen? The quantum stew is becoming temporarily unstable. No time, Kip T declared. We're about to uncover the biggest scientific scandal since we discovered the Zentarians were actually just very elaborate moss formations. Besides, we might need snacks. Our first breakthrough came when we discovered something humans called Reddit, specifically a subreddit called r/Alien Research LOL, with 10,000 years of posts documenting their entire deception. Look at this, I said, pulling up a post from 8,000 years ago. Username Dave from Nebraska, posting day 573, convinced the aliens that coffee is a sacred ritual fluid. Suggested they study our ordering ceremonies. Half the research team is now addicted to pumpkin spice lattes. Here's another one, the cafeteria worker noted, surprisingly adept at digital archaeology. Tutorial, how to pretend your primitive technology isn't actually advanced when aliens are watching. It has billions of upvotes. But why? One of the maintenance drones asked, still sucking up singularity residue. Why go to all this trouble? That's when we found the memes, millions of them, billions. 10,000 years of humans sharing jokes about fooling alien researchers. They had entire entertainment channels dedicated to recreating their favorite moments of tricking us. There were awards given out for the most elaborate deceptions. Look at this one, Kip T pointed. It's a picture of me taking detailed notes about human sock-pairing rituals. The caption says, "Alien researchers studying human laundry habits, while we're literally building a Dyson sphere behind them." That's ridiculous, I scoffed. Humans don't have a Dyson sphere. We would have noticed. We all slowly turned to look out the window at the star that powered our research station. The star that, now that I thought about it, had been remarkably stable and efficient for as long as anyone could remember. Oh no, I whispered. The deeper we dug, the worse it got. We found their actual technological archives, hidden in plain sight as science fiction. We discovered their true historical records, disguised as something called conspiracy theories. Everything we thought we knew about human development was carefully crafted to make us think we were studying a primitive species on the verge of interstellar travel. "Professor!" Kip T called out, their eye stalks rigid with shock. "I found their actual anthropological studies of us. They've been studying how we study them." "That's not the worst part," the cafeteria worker said grimly. "According to these records, humans achieved unified global cooperation 10,000 years ago for the sole purpose of maintaining this practical joke. They literally achieved world peace because they thought it would be funny to pretend to be divided into nations when we showed up." "But what about all their conflicts, their wars?" I asked weakly. "Elaborate theatrical productions," Kip T replied, scrolling through more archives. "Apparently they call it live-action role-playing or LARP. They've been staging fake conflicts whenever our observation posts are nearby, then having secret peace celebrations as soon as we leave. So every major human historical event we've documented was performed specifically for our benefit, yes." Kip T pulled up another post from Dave from Nebraska. "Reminder, regional war performance scheduled for next week. Don't forget your deliberately primitive weapons. Remember, we're supposed to be at approximately 21st century technology level. No quantum devices visible to the alien researchers." The maintenance drones had given up on the black holes and were now stress-eating the temporarily unstable quantum stew. I couldn't blame them. "We have to confront them," I decided finally. "We have to know why. Why would an entire species dedicate 10,000 years to such an elaborate deception? According to these archives, the cafeteria worker said, still scrolling, they did it, and I quote, for the LOLs. That's when we knew we had to talk to Dave from Nebraska, the real Dave from Nebraska, if we could even be sure that was his real name anymore. Field note. Further linguistic studies suggest that for the LOLs is somehow related to LOL, but at this point, I'm too afraid to investigate that connection more deeply. We found Dave exactly where we expected him to be, in his ordinary Nebraska home, doing what appeared to be typical human activities. Except now we could see the quantum fluctuations around his supposedly primitive television and the subtle dimensional distortions around his microwave. "Oh, hey guys," he called out cheerfully as our entire investigation team materialized in his living room. "Just watching the game and having a cold one, you know, normal human stuff. Want to observe my beverage consumption rituals?" "Enough, Dave," I said, trying to sound authoritative despite my growing suspicion that my entire academic career was a cosmic joke. "We know everything." "Everything?" He raised an eyebrow innocently. "About what, the tax filing system? Because I was thinking of doing my taxes again if you need more research data." "We found our alien research LOL," Kipty interrupted. Dave's face lit up like a supernova. "Finally! Do you have any idea how hard it was to make that subreddit obvious enough for you to find it, but not so obvious that you'd find it too soon? We had a whole team dedicated to calibrating that." "But why?" I asked, my professional dignity crumbling faster than a quantum probability wave. "Why spend 10,000 years pretending to be a primitive species?" "Oh man." Dave leaned back in his chair, which I now noticed was hovering slightly. "You should see your faces. Well, your eye stalks and chromatophores and various sensory appendages. This is even better than we imagined, and believe me, we've been imagining this moment for millennia." "We demand answers," Valder declared, accidentally creating another small black hole in their agitation. "Oh, sweet quantum singularity," Dave chuckled, casually waving his hand as the black hole transformed into a bowl of petunias. "You guys really want to know? Fine. We did it because it was hilarious." "Hilarious," the cafeteria worker squeaked. "Look," Dave sat forward, still grinning. 10,000 years ago, we detected your first observation probes entering our solar system. We were already a Type 2 civilization by then, but we noticed how excited your scientists got about discovering primitive species, so we had a choice: reveal ourselves as an advanced civilization, or pretend to be adorably primitive and see how long we could keep the joke going." "You unified your entire planet for a prank?" I whispered. "Best team-building exercise ever," Dave exclaimed. "You should have seen the global vote. It was unanimous in about 3 seconds. Do you have any idea how boring it is being an advanced civilization? This gave us something fun to do. We've got entire entertainment networks dedicated to coming up with new ways to seem primitive around your researchers." "But the coffee-ordering rituals?" Kipty asked weakly. "Oh man, that was one of our best." Dave was practically bouncing with glee. "We just kept making them more and more complicated to see if you'd catch on. The person who came up with venti half-calf sugar-free vanilla soy upside-down caramel macchiato with extra whip and exactly 3 sprinkles of cinnamon got a global award for that one." "What about the tax system?" I asked, thinking of my centuries of research. "Totally made up." Dave was wiping tears of laughter from his eyes now. "We haven't used anything like money for thousands of years. We just invented the most unnecessarily complicated system we could think of. The IRS is actually an acronym for Interstellar Research Shenanigans." The maintenance drones had to catch Valder as their ceremonial headpiece deflated completely. "So everything?" they asked faintly. "The wars, the political systems, the technological development, all carefully scripted?" Dave was on a roll now. "We've got warehouses full of deliberately primitive-looking technology we only bring out when your observation posts are nearby. Our actual tech is, well, let's just say that television I'm pretending to watch is actually a small universe I'm running as a simulation to see if they develop their own practical jokers." "But what about all our research?" I asked. "All our papers, our theories?" "Oh, those are great." Dave assured us. "We've got them all archived. They're among our most popular comedy series. The one about human sock-pairing rituals won the Galactic Comedy Award last year. Well, our Galactic Comedy Award, not yours. Though technically we're part of your galactic community too, we just thought it would be funnier to pretend we weren't." I looked around at my fellow researchers, Valda practically melting into the floor, Kip T's eye stalks tied in knots, the maintenance drone stress-eating more quantum stew, and the cafeteria worker who was seriously reconsidering their career choices. "So what happens now?" I asked finally. Dave's grin somehow got even wider. "Want to see what we really are?" Field note. At this point, I feel compelled to mention that the humans have requested we maintain our observation posts, quote, "for old time's sake." They say we're welcome to keep studying them, but now they want to see how long it takes us to figure out if they're still pranking us about their actual civilization. The Galactic Scientific Council's emergency session to address the human situation lasted 3 standard months. Most of that time was spent in various stages of academic breakdown, with occasional breaks for stress-eating quantum stew and creating small black holes of embarrassment. "So," Valda said finally, after we'd all watched the humans' complete archive of their 10,000-year prank, "just to summarize, not only are humans not primitive, they're actually more advanced than we are?" "To be fair," Dave offered from the holographic display where he was now casually juggling dark matter, "we've had a lot of time to develop while you were studying our deliberately primitive sock-pairing methods." The entire council flinched at the mention of sock-pairing. 12,000 doctoral theses had to be recalled over that one. "But what about all our other research subjects?" Council member Weta 9 asked desperately. "Surely the Zentarians aren't?" "Oh no," Dave interrupted cheerfully. "The Zentarians really are just very elaborate moss formations. That one's legitimate. We actually didn't believe it ourselves at first. We had a whole bet going about whether they were pranking us too. The revelation that humans had been running their own anthropological studies of the galaxy while pretending to be the subjects of our research had hit the academic community hard. The fact that they'd been doing it better than us while simultaneously maintaining an elaborate facade of primitive development hit even harder. "I still don't understand," Kip T said, who had been promoted to head of human studies, mainly because everyone else in the department had taken early retirement. "Why reveal yourselves now?" "Oh, that's the best part," Dave grinned. "We didn't, you figured it out. Well, sort of. We had to make the evidence progressively more obvious over the last few centuries, but you got there eventually. We've been taking bets for thousands of years on how long it would take. I actually won the pool. I said you'd crack it after exactly 10,000 years. "You've been taking bets on us?" Valda asked faintly. "Among other things," Dave admitted. "We've got quite extensive research on galactic academic institutions and their observation methods. Would you like to see our papers? They're quite thorough, though I should warn you that our section on methodology-based black hole creation is primarily focused on you, Valdur." Valdur's ceremonial headpiece, recently reinflated, deflated again. The real kicker came when humans started integrating openly with galactic society. Turns out they'd been secretly maintaining diplomatic relations with half the galaxy for millennia, all while pretending to be amazed by their own primitive space program whenever our researchers were watching. "The moon landing was real, though," Dave assured us. "We actually did that the hard way, just for fun. We thought it would add authenticity to our performance. The secret base on the dark side of the moon where we were coordinating our galactic relations, that we kept quiet about. The humans even offered to help us upgrade our research technology, though they suggested we might want to focus on something other than sock-pairing rituals and tax preparation methods. Although, Dave added, if you really want to study actual human sock-pairing methods, our quantum-entangled self-sorting laundry systems are quite fascinating. The Galactic Scientific Council has since established new protocols for first contact situations, primarily focused on determining whether we're being pranked. The humans have offered to help with this, though personally I'm not entirely sure we should trust their advice on how to spot elaborate deceptions. There's still ongoing debate about what to do with the 10,000 years of research we conducted. The humans have suggested turning it into a museum exhibit called How to Troll a Galaxy, a 10,000-year performance art installation. They've even offered to recreate some of their most elaborate deceptions for educational purposes. As for me, I've started a new research project, this time studying actual human humor and its role in galactic diplomacy. Though I have to admit, I'm never entirely sure if they're being serious with me or not. Just yesterday, Dave tried to convince me that humans used to think the Earth was flat. No, really, he insisted. We've got historical documents and everything. I've learned my lesson, though. I'm not falling for that one, I think. Field note. The humans have submitted a formal request to have this entire report classified under their newly created academic category. Longest-running practical jokes in galactic history. The Council is still debating whether to approve this, mainly because we're not sure if the request itself is another prank. End report. P.S. Dave from Nebraska still hasn't told us his real name. He says guessing it is the next phase of human-galactic relations. I'm starting to think the humans might have a slight problem with compulsive pranking. P.P.S. The cafeteria worker has since been promoted to head of Galactic Anthropological Methodology Reform on the grounds that they're the only one who managed to maintain any dignity throughout this entire situation. They've already instituted one major policy change. All future research must be conducted while sharing quantum stew with the subject species. It's surprisingly effective.